Lois, why did you buy this?
It was on sale.
Action News Network is an Aboriginal American media network. As such, we are protected under the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, or DRIP, Articles 8, 14, and 16. Action News Network is allowed to provide Aboriginal news and media content on non-Indigenous media platforms free of oppressive censorship. Any breach of this protection is a breach of international law.
But in the daytime, the streets were clear. You couldn't find a good freak anywhere, cause friends come out at night. Friends come out at night. Friends come out at night. Freaks come out. Friends come out at night. 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 Freaks come out.
They're not going to stop, and this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop, and everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not, and we should not.
Jumping, the place is packed, and when the crowd's like this, I'm ready to rap. But before I can buzz around on the mic, freaks are all over me like white on rice. Freaks come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, but what I like about them most is that they're real good lovers. They do it in the park, they do it in the dark, but most freaks are known for breaking hearts. You can never tell what a freak is thinking of, and you may never catch a freak without at least one glove. They don't walk, when they step, they strut, and 9 times out of 10 they drive you nuts. So take my advice, you don't stand a chance. Freaks are so bad, they got their own dance. So if you wanna live a nice, quiet life, do yourself a favor, don't come out at night. Cause freaks come out at night. Freaks come out at night. Freaks come out at night. Freaks come out. Freaks come out at night. 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 Freaks come out. Freaks come out at night. Hut 1, hut 2, hut. Get out to sea. Show me that you deserve to be afraid. Get a little show. Work it out now. Everybody, have a good time. Get a little show. Work it out now. Everybody, won't go behind. Let it out now. Let it all hang out. Let it out. Politics as usual. Politics as usual. I took my Frito to Tito in the district. Bless me with some BS, somethings I could live with. Stop fronting, and for the dough I raise, gotta get shit of praise. No disrespect to you, make sure your word is true. I'm taking wages down in Vegas just in case Tyson have a major night off. That's clean money, the tax write-off. You ain't seen money in your life when it comes to this cheese. Y'all like 3 blind mice. I'm smoking bros who pump Willie, I expose the first.
So it says Black Lives Matter movement, BLM, right? And I'm just going to read the highlighted parts because for sake of time. It portrays itself as a grassroots movement, spontaneous uprising. However, it is a well-funded communist socialist organization, and a lot of people should know this by now. Okay, get that out the way. Now they are united in a major force. They're trying to provoke a civil war, a race war. Again, if you don't see this coming, then there's something seriously wrong with you. Provoking police killings, violence, lawlessness, and unrest, pretending they represent injustice towards blacks. It's according to them, where they watch workers for open society groups, which is George Soros, his little pet project, his philanthropy project is open society and the groups. And that they had agitators there, and they was getting paid $1,200 a month for agitating. It's not the best. $1,200 a month is not the best. amount of money, but if this is just something you're doing on the side or while you're off, because everybody's unemployed right now because of the CV, right? So that's kind of convenient right there. So you got those people who are not working in $1,200 a month to do this crap. And this is why you have people in Minneapolis, at a riot in Minneapolis, that live in Chicago or like Wisconsin or something like that. You know, they're getting bussed into these places. The late Larry Grafwell, FBI informant in the Weather Underground, which we'll discuss a little bit later, understood from personal experience how white communists exploited blacks. Bill Ayers and Bernie Thorne, who's we'll go over later on too in this video, regarded Barack Obama, who they sponsored, as a tool, a puppet to use against white America. So these guys basically,
this is following the ground shooting in August 2014. Dream Defenders, which is an organization led by Worker Trades Party under Akon, right? And they also had, started Occupy Wall Street. And the anarchist who was in charge of that, Nalini Stamp, popularized the phrase "hands up, don't shoot." So as you can see right here, that phrase came from this dude, whoever Nalini Stamp is. I'm pretty sure it was a white person. It wasn't too many blacks involved in Occupy Wall Street, unless she was down there hoping that something would go on. But you know, that became the slogan of the whole BLM, right? So you got Garza, Kohlers, and Tometi all work, you know, for like, you know, these socialist groups. Like they started at like Freedom Road Socialist Organization, you know what I'm saying? Radical Left, or is one of the largest radical left organizations in the country. So you gotta look at a lot of these organizations, and we're gonna take a look at one of them, which is Weather Underground, a little bit later. And their goal is to make it look like everyone feels this way, and if you're on the wrong side of history, you don't follow along. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to. The Weather Underground, the Weather Underground organization, you know, it used to be known as the Weathermen. This is from way back in the 60s and shit. It was a radical left militant organization active in the late 1960s, founded on the campus of University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, right? It was a fraction of the Students for Democratic Society, which is an older socialist group. And it beginning in 1974, you know, a few years later, their political goal was to create a revolutionary party to overthrow American imperialism. And this is these are the groups that the older people here now are now funding BLM and shit. Okay, so you know the ideology is communism. It says Black Power and Black nationalism, but no, that they use that as their shield, their cover. Like they're doing something great for the black community, when they really just want communism. And if they gotta use us, you know, as the front dummies, the pawns in the front, the proxies, then they'll do that, which is racist as it is. And leaders is Bill Ayers, again, the name you should remember, and Bernadine Thorne is his wife. Their allies back then was the Black Liberation Army and the Black Panther Party, right? Which were radical black groups that were started by these groups. These groups helped fund and start and gave them the ideology to do this shit. You know, in the 1970s, Weather Underground conducted a bombing campaign targeting government buildings. And they say these attacks preceded by evacuation warnings along with threats. So they wasn't trying to kill anybody. They really just wanted to scare everybody in there and cause attention and shit. They probably didn't even have a bomb in a lot of these situations and shit. But just calling the Capitol up and saying you're gonna bomb it, you know, is gonna get the attention of the media and everybody and shit. The WHO communique issued bombing of the United States Capitol on March 1st, 1971, and May 1972, bombing of the Pentagon, which they said was a retaliation for some bombing in Vietnam, I believe, yeah, in Hanoi. And January 29th, 1975, they did the same bombing campaign of the United States Department of State. So here's Bill Ayers, one half of the founders of the Weather Underground, who's helping with the ideology for all of this shit. And this is gonna be something that's gonna be crazy to you when you really realize this. Let me read his shit to you and then really see if it clicks with you. He was a elementary education theorist, right? Whatever the fuck that is. During the 60s, he was leader of the Weather Underground that opposed U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. That's what their guise is. They want anarchy, they want communism and socialism and Marxism. But by saying that, nobody's going to jump with you. If you say you're against the Vietnam War, then you have a catalyst. So they was taking advantage of a situation that the country was being divided with, and causing and trying to get their shit through by pretending they really care about the Vietnam War. Maybe they cared a little bit, but not as much. They used them as their black proxy at the time, and then they went on to use the civil rights movement, and they're doing it now with the police brutality because it's really not much for them to use now. So they create incidents, all right. He was known for his work in education reform. I don't know why they let this dude anywhere near fucking kids educating anybody. 69 Ayers, co-founder of the Underground and self-described communist group, conducted a campaign of bombing public buildings, including police stations, the United States Capitol, and Pentagon. So this guy either bombed or threatened to bomb all these fucking places, including the Pentagon, the Capitol building, and police stations. But as we could, his wife is right here, Bernadine Ray Dawn, maiden name Ornstein, retired law professor, former leader of. See how you watch it? She's even worse than him, all right? And she's been on watch it. Retired law professor, former leader of the Weather Underground. I don't even know how you could be a former leader of a terrorist group and be a law professor. Later on, she was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. She remained a fugitive even though she was removed from the list. After coming out of hiding in 1980, she pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charges of aggravated battery and jet bell jumping. As I'm saying, it's not fishy here. How you people were doing all this fucking shit and the government just slaps on their wrist. Okay. So here's some more on from Influence Watch on the monetary gains or the funding of Black Lives Matter. Some other interesting facts to correlate and as receipts. Black Lives Matter is a movement seeking to reform police, right? Especially as it involves force against African Americans, right? Dodge the hijack. Criticized for appearing to tolerate violent demonstrations in his name, stoking racial tensions, creating an unsafe environment for police, pushes his left-wing extremist agenda under false appearance of a reformist movement, right? So all stuff that we should all know by now in this series. Okay, this is the important parts. Liberal funders such as George Soros and Rob McKay, who I believe owns Taco Bell and KFC, and other Democracy Alliance donors have given millions of dollars to groups associated with the movement, which have total ranked in about 133 million. It's a lot of money. They have well more than enough money to bail each other out, to bust each other, fly each other around the country, certain agitators and actors, and put them up for room and board, right? Anyway, he's a bad dude. He's a globalist, and he spends his money, like a child in a candy store, just causing chaos. So, he's one of these up here. I'm circling that one of these star children. So let's see. Philanthropy. George Soros Foundation to spend $222 million to support black groups advocating for racial justice. And this is just a few months ago, in 2020, right? July 2020. Open Society, remember I told you Open Society is his joint. The foundation, founded by liberal billionaire philanthropist George Soros, is set to donate $222 million to racial justice groups in the wake of civil unrest around the issue of police brutality. A statement one day from the foundation said $150 million of the money will be in the form of 5-year grants to a diverse set of black-led organizations. Notice how he don't say which ones, but we all know what's going on right now. What's the only black organization doing something? All right.
What you do, you put your left foot up and then your right foot next. Follow instructions, don't lose the context. bloody attitude.
Beat fighter, dope style taker. Tell you to your face, you ain't nothing but a faker. Beat fighter, dope style taker. Tell you to your face, you ain't nothing but a faker.
Your style is smooth, even for a cheap mic. You should've won a prize as a rock him sounding like here's a milk bone. A sign of recognition, don't turn away. I think you should listen close, don't boast. You said you wasn't bragging, you fucking liar. You're chasing a chuck wagon. The only way you learn, you have to be taught that if a beat is not for sale, then it can't be bought. When you leave the mic, you claim it's smoking. Unlike Rakim, you are a joke, and I think you ought to stop.
That's what's happening. That's why it's so easy for people to burn down these cities. These people that's out in Portland, they not from Portland. The people that was in Minnesota wasn't from Minnesota. 14, right? Movement gained significant traction after the fatal shooting of Michael Brown. We all know that, right? So here we go again with Dream Defenders, which is ran by Working Families Party and Occupy Wall Street, and also she's down with Acorn, which has connections to Obama. The Leany Stamp, the Bed Wench, that we exposed in part 2 of Controlled Opposition. She popularized the phrase "hands up, don't shoot," and that's we found out, and if you don't know, we found out that was apparently a false claim that Brown had his hands up after surrender. He was fighting the cop. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't justify, him fighting with the cop, wrestling with the cop, But anyway, she came up with that phrase, and it's one of the most popularly recognized slogans, right?
To debunk. I don't know if she wrote that or not, or she said that or not. How you prove that shit? So I found her on this site because she's not like someone really, really famous, but this is like a Wikipedia for like revolutionaries and shit. And I know that she's married to a dude named Joel or Joel Solo. That doesn't sound like a brother at all. So we're gonna get into that in a minute, okay? And then Leany Stamp is the director of strategy at Working Families Party. She doesn't really have any personal shit here other than she's married to Joel Solo or Joel Solo. It just keeps on going saying about this shit. And she went to Columbia or something like that. All right. And this is a picture of her. This is, she looks like one of those weirdo fucking, look at that purple hair. One of these weirdo fucking leftist, goddamn protesting, college educated suburban black kids who ain't never fucking really did anything in the hood. You can tell by the company she keeps. And this is her husband. So bingo, here we go. He's a, star child, right? Those pretending to be the real Hebrews, those people, right? They're not Judas, but they're Ish. They're Judah-ish. Ish meaning from Arabic meaning like. So they're Judah-like. They pretending. He studied African American studies and theater, which is perfect for the bullshit that's going on. And also anthropology, which goes into the history and fucking artifacts and stuff that make up cultures. So, and he also said he was radicalized by reading Noam Chomsky. And this is what he looks like. That's what she's married to, this dude, who thinks he knows black people because he took courses in college taught by another star child who thinks that they know black people.
There's at least 2 versions of BLM. There's the BLM network founded by the 3 black female activists. And then there's the BLM movement, a collection of racial justice groups. Somewhat true, they get in along with what I'm saying that, let's get into this. Alright, well, the BLM network is structured and has 34 chapters. The movement is decentralized. The BLM movement is decentralized, or local rather than national leadership. The movement eschews hierarchy, centralized leadership. Patrice Cullors, who we all know, so the movement is organized and often spontaneous and not directed by one person or group of people. So they're using Marxist and the same tactics that Antifa uses, where they're saying Black Lives Matter is not really a group or an organization. It's just more of an ideology and a movement, right? This is how they make it hard for them to get prosecuted and all this other crap. This is very white domestic terrorist kind of tactics that's been used by the Weather Underground and a whole bunch of other groups back in the 60s and 70s. The extremist parts of the platform, and their platform is unpalatable to most politicians, which includes extensive reparations, which is good for black people, but it's not going to happen. The ones that are in green are good for black people. The ones that are in blue or things that can happen, but probably that can happen very easily, and that is happening under Trump. The things in red is bad, right? As usual, red is always bad. So extensive reparations, redistribution of financial resources. That's also a socialist. In red, you see I have socialization of the American economy, which is socialism, which is what they're trying to push in communism. That's what they're really trying to push. And also right under it in blue, this is really what they're trying to push. It also demanded special protections for trans, queer, gender, and gender non-conforming people. This is what they really, really want. They want what's in red, and they want this right here down right under it, demanding special protections for the trans and queer people and shit. They call for free education for black people and black economic cooperatives. See, the shit they want for black people, they know they're not going to get and stuff. So they'll settle for the trans, queer, and gender shit, which is easy for them to get, because they already got most of what they want. What the gays are trying to do is they're trying to control the black community and to fighting for them and sicking us on the public and shit, and in hopes and response that they'll give them their rights and shit like that, and they'll call off everything. If they just gave them everything they wanted when it comes to the gay shit, they would call off everything that's going on in the country right now and say that things has gotten better. I would bet my last paycheck on that shit. You know what I'm saying? That's how obvious it is. So Barbara Reynolds was a veteran of the 60s civil rights movement. Says many civil rights activists agree with BLM's goals, but fundamentally disagree with their approach. According to Reynolds, BLM uses confrontational and divisive tactics, boorish rhetoric, profanity, rejects proven protest methods, which make it difficult to distinguish legitimate activists from mob activists who burn and loot. 1960s civil rights activists use loving and non-violent means to win allies and mollify enemies. BLM movement uses rage and anger, and this is very true. It's like rebels without a cause kind of shit. So I have this chick's name kind of pointed out. Black Lives Matter is known for the extremism. Donasia Yancey, a Black Lives Matter activist, says we're a radical organization with radical politics and have radical ideas. There's no way of softening that. Every time I see one of these names of these bitches, B-I-S-H, not B-I-T-C-H, bitches, right? Anytime I see one of these names, I go after them and see who they are, because this is who's running these operations, right? So let's go and check this out. Let's go check out Donasia Yancey, and let's go see what she's all about and why she's a leader of this organization and why there's all these females running these shits. So real quick, it didn't even take me that long to find out. I don't even do a big ass thing about her, because right here in this article from a publication talking about Boston, the education of Donasia Yancey. She's young, black, female, and gay, and ready for her mugshot, meet the new face of Boston civil rights movement. So once again, here's a black female who's gay, who's, goddamn queer, lesbian, right? And she's running this organization. Like, this should be a pattern that you all recognize by now. This is getting kind of like scary and shit. It says Yancey has been an activist since she was 13 years old. I don't know how you be an activist when you're 13. You don't even know how to put your fucking clothes on properly at 13, let alone if you're gay or whatever and shit. When she fought to found the Gay Straight Alliance at her Newton Middle School. Newton is a suburb of Boston. It's not affluent, but it's working class and stuff like that. It's not the worst place in the world to grow up at, all right? So she's not really from the hood, and you'll see pictures of her later. They all have the same kind of look to them. They all these like suburban weirdos who now they want to act like they've been in trouble or been in there for their whole life and shit. She grew up in the post-Ellen era. Gay marriage was sanctioned by law by the time she was in high school. Her political training came through law local LGBT youth organizations not from clergy fired in the kiln of the civil rights movement. So what they're doing here is they're saying that these new activists are more influenced by the gay movements of the 90s and the early 2000s than they are of the civil rights movement. And like we went through before in the previous video, Black Lives Matter is using a lot of tactics from these LGBT organizations, right? And they use that and they kind of shit on the old guard. She is heir to the protest culture that owes as much to feminism rather than to like Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, and here's how she looks. They all have the same fucking look to them. They look like a bunch of I don't want to like diss the girl or nothing like that, but they all have the same look to them. Okay, and yeah, you don't love black people. Okay, like stop that. You're using this shit for your own sexual conquest kind of agenda. Your sexual deviancy agenda, and you're using us and stuff like that.
But I wait for the day or night that you approach, and I'ma serve and burn you like a piece of toast. Pop you in a microwave and watch your head bubble. Your skin just crumble. A battle's no trouble. Get my homegirls Tony and Kiki to get stupid. This thing called hip hop, light is ruling it. I hate.
So I was looking over, some of these posts and stuff like that, and this is from the leader of the Toronto chapter of BLM. She's a mess right here. With white people, I guess she's putting white people so radical, but you can't spell your name out right, or she's just a dumbass young millennial. Don't understand is that this is not like our elders movement. We will snatch your edges and clap back you into ashes. Can't write properly, even in Ebonics. It must be a Canadian thing. We will also beat that ass, Becky. Run up. First of all, if you're in Canada, so y'all didn't really have a civil rights movement up there. Definitely didn't have anything to do with the civil rights movement that was going on here. You have different laws, and you had a different period up there. People were actually leaving America to go to, leaving the United States to go to Canada, all right, to escape the shit that's going on here. So your whole movement is false and phony. And yes, Canada, Toronto has problems. The police department is way better than the majority of the fucking large cities in the United States. I'll tell you that much. You have a small black population up there, and mostly immigrants. So a lot of the Native American blacks are not really up there in Canada like that. Many of them, who did come from them areas up there, most likely left into the States a long time ago. But y'all have like Africans and the Caribbean folk who are our brothers and sisters and cousins, but they don't get treated the same way as us mainlanders on the mainland in certain aspects, but you don't have the same problems, okay? So a lot for nothing. And here's another one. Please Allah, give me strength not to curse, kill these men and white folks out of here today, all right? Please, please, please. You can see with her, she goes by Yashua Ali. She's using Allah's name in fucking vain because, and I don't mean to curse, with Allah in the same sentence, no disrespect, but using Allah's name in vain, pretending to be a Muslim, because you can't be a lesbian and be a Muslim at the same time. They oxymoronical, okay? So she's in it, but her real name is Yashua Krogali, which is a name that comes from Turkey, but is also found in South Sudan and amongst the people of the Abyssinia African Horn region of Africa, Eritrea, Somalia. You'll find that name. So she's like East African, okay? Another immigrant pretending to be us, pretending to have solidarity with us here in America, the American Aborigines, and sitting here stirring up trouble. She's also a freaking lesbian. So, again, just all this freaking bullshit. Like I said, I'm not gonna go into too much about her. Yashua Krogali, from Toronto, Black Lives Matter. She doing all these racist rants, and she uses this stupid what do you call this shit? Intersectional, which means I guess both races.
slogan, lingo, or whatever hell jargon. The system, anytime something is describing both male and female and it has male in it, like human, they put an X in it, Xing out the man. I just want y'all to see that Xing out the man is exactly what they want to do. Alright? She argued on social media that black people are superior race because white people are subhuman X, whatever the fuck that stupid shit is, who suffer from recessive genetic defects and how they could be wiped out. Alright? Don't want to comment too much on this. We all know what the truth is and shit. But this is shit you don't fucking. This is not gonna help your fucking your movement. Okay, you can't defeat like clan, with clan like tactics. All right, you have to kill them with intelligence. All right, that's how you get back at your enemy. Show them how fucking smart you are. She was born in '91, so yeah, she's a young dumbass. Her comments, whiteness is not humanness, that she wrote to, I guess, Trudeau, the prime minister up there. And white people need white supremacy as a mechanism to protect their survival as a people. That's very true. Again, but there's no reason to fucking put that shit out there. You don't lay all your cards on the table. Black people that will through their dominant genes can literally wipe out the white race. I mean, on a regular. BLM affirms black, queer, and trans folks, all lives on the gender spectrum. On his website, Black Lives Matter states, and I'm just going to read the highlighted parts. It affirms the lives of black, queer, and trans folk and all lives along the gender spectrum. We just went over this in the manifest, right? In the manifesto. Polls show affirming black, homosexuals, and transgender is not a top priority for many black Americans. A Pew Research poll, and this is from 2019, September 2019, 53% of black Protestants believe same-sex marriage is very bad for society. An earlier 2014 poll from the same place, 52% of black Protestants strongly oppose the same-sex marriage, and only 40% strongly favor gay marriage. 2013 poll, 32% black Protestants supported same-sex marriage. By 2017, 44% of black Protestants agreed, right? So that number has risen in 2017, but it's still less than a majority. And it doesn't reveal opposition or approval to gay marriage amongst blacks, right? For blacks in general, not based on religious rules, 51% favor same-sex marriage, and most of that would be, unfortunately, black women, but black men too, for instance. I don't have a problem with gay marriage. I don't care. Everybody should have the right to be miserable, right? Taxes and all that shit, to get the benefits. So I don't care. So now we talk about, we got this Bishop E.W. Jackson. He says and he was asked Black Lives Matter in his pro-LGBT emphasis, and he said, "I'm convinced that it's not about black lives. It's political agenda of the left. It's Marxist, socialist, and even communist agenda. They want to tear down traditional family and tear down America." And Jackson's a former Marine and earned his JD from Harvard Law School, so this is a very, very smart man. Dr. Alveda King, niece of the late Dr. King, right, said several years ago neither her grandfather or her uncle embraced the homosexual agenda. And Reverend William Owens, who was the founder of the Coalition of African American Pastors, we who marched with Reverend King did not march 1 inch or 1 mile to promote same-sex marriage. From the start, the founders of Black Lives Matter have always put the LGBTQ voices at the center of the conversation. That's very, very true. It's not only straight cisgender black men who's dying at the hands of police. They give an example of one guy who was killed in the transgender who was killed in Tallahassee by police. If there was so many of them, they would gave a whole list of them. But it's not. Not that his life matters any less than any other black person, and I care about that person's life regardless of their sexual preference. Juneteenth, which is a holiday that most black people celebrate, especially in Texas, like they saw intersectional, which I don't even fucking really understand 100%, celebrations of the black experience, but I know it has something to do with these LGBT stuff.
and they are taking our community by force. As you can see right here, this guy is Cotton Juicy Couture. So here's a real gay dude. We mess around with just Juicy Smollett, but here's Juicy Couture. Don't truly care about the welfare of blacks. BLM Marxist is basically a Marxist-Leninist communist that uses black suffering as a prop. It's a staged riot meant to destroy economic community and its flame racist hysteria. We have pretty much had good race relations over the last 20, 30 years. You have instances of police, but a lot of these instances of police, I believe, are staged. Just like it says as a staged riot, it's staged. It's like the Truman Show. Everything is controlled. All right, a lot of these shootings and stuff like that are fake. And it seems like every day now, I just seen one in Georgia where a guy got beat half to death and shit, for a traffic stop, and he wasn't even a driver. He was a passenger in the car for refusing to show an ID. A lot of this stuff is just doesn't make any sense. Black Lives Matter has many similarities to the national LGBT movement, and that's true. They also use false narratives like homosexuality, genetic, LGBT kids, which doesn't exist. But they say that they're unsafe at school to push their larger agenda. They use anger threats, intimidation, including getting people fired from their jobs, and they do not tolerate actual critical debate on their dogma. And we've seen that with the last video with Ms. Garza. She did not, when she was talking with the interview with Armstrong Williams, and it was a great interview to display how they don't take or tolerate critical debate. She didn't want to answer the questions. She didn't want to tolerate it. She just wanted to fucking say what the fuck she wanted to say. And that's so indicative of females, alright? Especially emotional ones who can't separate business from emotions. And that's what this whole movement is based on. And so it's not surprising that BLM and LGBT activists are strongly allied.